Hello YouTube! Today I'm going to be bringing you something that we haven't actually done in a while. It's called Total War! And this is going to be, this is Napoleon's version of Total War. So what we have is me commanding the British forces. Then we have my ally, who is the French player. And then we have the Russians. Now let me I cannot view exactly who the names are of each player, but you will see them at the end on the score screen. So let's start off by kind of going over the armies and what everyone's decided to bring here. So I've decided the rules of this game are no artillery and 3 light units. So I'm just bringing the standard light foot for Great Britain, and I have roughly 5 or 6 regular foot. And I do have 2 units of the Highland Foot. I do believe there's one over here. And I'm actually going to pause it so we can just go over this. So we have over on this side of my flank, we have Dragoons, one regular foot over here, foot guards, which are like my elite troops, a 42nd Black Watch unit, and just a regular Highland Foot. And then for my main army, I'm going to have another Highland Foot, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 regular foot to go back up my 3 skirmisher units, and then I have a single unit of dragoons and my general staff. Now for my French player, he's got some French voltigeurs, and he has 1. He should have 3. If he didn't have 3, then that might be explaining a few things. He has 2. Yeah. He only has 2 units of the light, but that's okay. You know, that's not the end of the world. He also has Swiss foot. He has 1, 2, 3, 4. He has 4 Swiss foot on this flank. He has Polish legions. He has 4 units of Polish legion. A young guard. He also has, well, actually, he has 2, 3, 4 5 young guard. He has 5 young guard and a general staff. No old guard, though, which is quite interesting. And then we have the Russian player, and the Russian player is bringing the Russian Jaegers. He's got some guys hidden up in the trees, the musketeers, pretty standard units, and more musketeers over here, general staff, and the bulk of his army is kind of sitting over here. He has 3 cav units, his dragoons, lifeguard horse, and mounted rifles. He's got the Pavlovsk Grenadiers, he has Moscow Musketeers, Russian Jaegers, more Musketeer teams, 2 more of them, and of course his Lifeguard and his 17th Jaeger Regiment, as well as he also has some Russian Jaegers heading over there. Our opponents today are going to be Austria. Austria is bringing with himself some Landwehr units. He's bringing some Landschützen, which are pretty much his light infantry. He appears to only have... he has 2. Okay, he does have 2 units of his lights. Some of his army's hidden right now. He's got German Fusiliers, Hungarian Fusiliers, pretty much just line infantry for the rest. So nothing too ridiculous. And then we actually have 2 British players that we're going to be fighting against. General Staff, of course, King's German Legion on light dragoons, regular dragoons, and 2, so pretty much 2 sets of KGL light dragoons and 2 regular dragoons. He's got 1. Let's see. He should have more than 1. Yeah, 2, 3, 4. He has 4 units of regular foot. He has 3 foot guards. He has a 42nd Black Watch, a Highland and 2 Highland foot, as well as some more King's German Legion foot, just for the infantry. And then this player over here, oh, he's got a nice little column formation set up. This player has got 2 rifleman teams. He also has 1, 2, 3, 4. He has 4 foot guards, all lined up over here. He's got a 42nd Foot Black Watch, his general. A King's German Legion team. He's got 2 King's German Legion. He also has 3 more Highland Foot, no, actually 4 more Highland Foot, and a regular foot soldier. So that's pretty good. Alright, so let's kick this battle off, shall we? So I'll just hop over here to my unit. So what I was thinking is I was just going to take this force and kind of combat the Austrians when they make their break over here. And then I would use this force to help support my French player who was going into the middle. And I was just one of the first ones to start moving my men. As you can see, based on the battle lines, this is kind of what I was thinking. He'd come into this choke point, I'd take him out, as well as over here. I was just kind of moving everyone up because I knew it would take longer for them to come around. So I figured that would make sense. Our French player has not given any orders yet. Well, he's given a couple. I can't quite see the exact troop placements, but he's pretty much going to line up all his men if he can. And my Russian player is going to move forward very quickly here. So it's kind of just a mad rush. The British player in the middle is closest to the town, so he's going to take advantage of everything he can. He's doing a very early cav strike coming in. And we can see that the Austrian player, he's just kind of sitting up on the hill. And what you'll see here, unfortunately, this guy is going to be camping on this hill. So I'm not ignoring the Austrian player, just know that yeah, that's just how it goes. So the British player doing an epic sort of like sweeping charge across to go and meet the lines of the French. But of course we do get this very early cav charge here. We got some King's German Legion Dragoons fighting some Young Guard who are not going into square, but you know what, they should be okay. And the British player over here is going to go set up some defenses. He's going to get his light infantry rifles to go and probably plant, and I'm pretty sure he's planting stakes, if I'm remembering correctly. Otherwise, it doesn't make too much sense. Let me just see.
Infantry elite.
Yep, planting stakes. All right. So they're going to plant stakes in preparation for a Russian cav charge. But it's okay. This guy over here, I'm pretty sure, this is Matt actually, if I can remember correctly.
This building has fallen to the enemy.
It's his first game, essentially, is my point. So bear that in mind when you're watching. He's a 1-star, but it's okay, because we like having new players, of course. So I was just kind of moving up all my men. Nothing really exciting happened for me for a while, just because the Austrian player was deciding to hide. The British players moved up their general staff over here to try and support their army. The British and the French are immediately going to be clashing, with the British player taking over the city as best that he can, and we can see that the first volleys are in fact going off. Man, I really love these British uniforms. The nice red, very classic and standard. But of course, I mean, hey, the French are equally awesome. Yeah, that's what we like to see. And I don't mind having the mini-map up because, one, I have nothing to hide. Two, I want you to kind of see the general troop movements in case something crazy happens. But all the fighting will pretty much start off in the middle here. As you can see, the French players rushing in, some Young Guard to try and take over this house, which is a pretty good idea. He's got his Young Guard here, kind of firing through the trees, but again, he can't really see much, so he's going to just kind of move up. British players taking over that building and moving over. I'm still just kind of moving my army into position, expecting some sort of an attack. Now you'll notice that the Russian player is moving over his forces to try and get good support here. So the Russian Jaegers are going to be duking it out against the British riflemen, which, I mean, I don't know. When I'm British, I don't really use the riflemen because, one, you get 60 units when you do it that way, and then my men, the Lightfoot, you get 90, and I personally think that having more units who can get into this nice formation are going to have a much better chance. So from my perspective, I didn't realize how much of a defense, I didn't realize he was camping for a little while. So I'll just kind of keep moving these guys over, but I do in fact decide, you know what, we should just kind of barrel rush and just do a side sweeping attack, which is fine. But anyway, back to more of the action. We have the French Young Guard going up against the Fencibles units, but the English are taking over all these buildings. We managed to rout that British unit, which is totally acceptable for my French player, who is in fact just going to keep moving up his lines. I realized that those foot guards are going to be a bit too elite for him to handle, so I wanted to come get on their backs. The French player had the same idea, getting his Young Guard into position, but I realized that was not necessarily going to work out, so I'm bringing over my own men to try and help out my French player over here. Meanwhile, we do see that the Russians are helping to invade the building to go against the British. The British player on this end is just duking it out. Good job, Matt. You're just actually getting good formations off. Pretty proud. And the British inside the town center is absolute chaos. These Young Guard were trying to line up to try and get an attack on these foot guard. The French Young Guard over here were duking it out against these foot guard. And I actually made an attack over here against the general, but he pulls back, which is totally fine because I still was expecting an Austrian attack, so he was getting ready just in case. But I was prepared to just kind of run down here So as you can see, the French and the Russian player are pushing up the center, and we definitely had
This building has fallen to the enemy.
A lot of people to deal with. So he starts to pile in his men into that building, which is going to be a bit of a nuisance, but it's okay because I'm starting to bring over. Yeah, I'm starting to bring over these light foot to help give suppressing fire onto those traitorous British foot guards. As you can see in the center of the town, the British player is in fact bringing over some cavalry to try and take on the musketeers, but they go into square, so the British player is going to change direction and go after those dragoons. And then the French player is kind of at a weird angle here. I'm not quite sure why he was doing that. It appears he is moving his men, though, and we can see that the Russian Jaeger unit, they're just kind of firing through the trees at the incoming British line. So I'm just kind of moving over, just trying to get everything in position to help out my ally. As we can see over here on this side, the Russian player is kind of not stretching his lines out to his fullest, but that's all right because these nice these nice Russian units are going to have a lot of fun, just kind of duking it out. Granted, I don't think those particular units are in range, which isn't the end of the world because the King's German Legion Foot are very advanced units, so you really want to be able to take them out if you can. The Russians are moving over. Russians are extremely good in melee, so I'm pretty sure that's why he was having such good success at taking over this building, because that's just something cool about that the Russians can do. Again, I was actually fighting some cavalry that came into my flank. I didn't realize that it was happening too quick enough, so I just formed these guys into square just in case, and eventually we are able to rout that unit. But as you can see, the battle lines are kind of getting drawn here. We got the French player who's trying to push back these foot guards, and I'm kind of coming over here over this ridge to give support. And we got plenty of French units in reserve, which is also totally fine with me. As you can see, these just foot units just firing over the King's German Legion foot. Actually, no, wait, these should be, yeah, light foot. They're the light foot. Against the Russian players' army, which is totally fine. Because as you can see, we have an epic melee charge into the middle here. It's a bit loud, so I'm just going to get out of there. And we notice that the Russian player does have mounted riflemen, but they are hidden from view of the British, which might have been his plan. He does have some Jaegers here who are just going to fire down at the British, trying to do their very best here. As we can see, we're starting to rout the enemy. The French player's young guard is doing an excellent job of wiping out these British soldiers, and we can see the Austrian player actually managed to sneak up some men and just put him into the building. And I didn't realize this for quite some time. I should have tried to stop them, but it was far too late for me. So I bring over my own British people. I got some light foot and some linemen with there just to support the French overall, because the enemy's British cav units were kind of attacking the Russians' cav, but 2 versus 1 they should be able to handle it with some French voltigeurs who will support, which are pretty much more line infantry, and just an epic volley shooting across the plains. It's a very good kind of tactic here. But you'll notice that my Russian player is breaking because he was unable to take down these very elite units. You know, don't get me wrong, these were very strong, and most of the Russians' forces were focused on trying to help out. He has 3 units in this building, because kicking units out of buildings, as I've learned, is kind of a pain. It's not fun. So I send over this cav to try and just cut these men off, because I didn't want full-strength units to be getting in. But for some reason, my cav wasn't behaving correctly. Wasn't quite sure why, which was a bit unfortunate. So I actually bring over all of these units who all were over here. I just kind of bring them over because I noticed Austria is not really doing much. And so then I just try and move up my men to try and get some attacks on the rear of the British, if possible. Because you'll notice these Great Britain foot are just holding the line here, keeping back both Russian and French support. The Russians over here are getting pretty worn down, but fortunately these Highland foot are getting killed by the Russian Jaegers, which is very good. Excuse me. a very impressive charge actually coming here from the British. Maybe it was kind of desperate. I feel like the British could have, you know, reformed their lines and maybe done a little bit of a better tactic, because see, now they get stuck, and you just don't, if you're going to charge your men, you got to commit, you know. You don't want to be weak about that. So I'm just going to bring all my men over to try and give support. But we can see these Austrians in the windows. You know, they're just really being a nuisance here. Those nice white uniforms, though, are pretty cool. So fortunately, they were able to rout them, and the Russian player's actually doing a pretty good job on this end. He just had a lot of struggle with this British player who had a... But you know what's really great, I had to cut the video, by the way, is that this British player's armies are very clumped up and very contained.
Now they must break.
But then we get a nice little general kill thanks to the Russian player going in for a sneak attack. And that's really going to screw up the British player for pretty much the rest of the game. And this general was a bit safer. We can see that the Austrian unit team is moving up some units, and the Allies were probably like, hey, stop camping on the hill. And that's totally fine, because we have some French player. The French was actually getting into that building, which is quite good for us. As you can see, we had finally dominated the middle of the town. So the British player will be pulling back his forces to try and make something happen a little bit quicker. Unfortunately, we just were not able to hold the middle. But you know what? It happens. No one's perfect. And plus, while our Russian player was pretty much defeated, we still had the French player's fresh troops, as well as my fresh troops. But all of these other guys, the only people who have good troops are like Austria. Everyone else had been fighting and running around, which is something that we had to bet on, because as the Russians, as you can see, they're getting out all their men from the building to go help hunt it down. The enemy, I actually ended up rushing in these units to try and make something happen that would be like, oh, you know, check it out. We're getting inside. You can even see them fighting. I thought that's pretty cool. I mean, granted, it's super loud, so I'm not going to bother going too close to it.
This building has fallen to the enemy.
Yeah, and as you can see, they take this building because they're like, hey, we gotta fight them back. But the Russian player, while he had lost his fight over here, he thought, you know what, why not just go around, you know, and why not help out on the other flank? But as you can see, the British player was being pretty conservative, you know, because while this Russian lifeguard foot were in fact in melee and were trying to take these guys down, the British player could have easily come up and attacked. But as you can see, the British player was also attacking over here against these Russian Jaegers, which was unfortunate. So I just start stuffing men into this building. I have, right now, inside of that, I have Highland Foot and Regular Foot, and I figure those guys should be better against the Fusiliers. But he did have a 47th Czech regiment, which is a bit annoying. So that means eventually these guys are going to have to get inside that building. As you can see, though, the Russian player is making advances in the middle. He's trying to stuff these guys into the building while these guys run into the building, making it a very close match over here. But what's interesting is that the British player is actually running over. These are not my men. Oh, actually, no, wait. These are. I'm sorry, my mistake. These are my men. I had actually pulled, remember these guys back here over this unit? It's a big map. These guys all pretty much ran down to try and help out. So they're just going to sit around and kind of go after them while this building slowly fills up. As you can see, we had with the Cav taking us out, I was a bit more cautious. But, I mean, when we get, like, a stack of 4 Russian groups against these 2, you know, that's pretty much done. I mean, this one has 19. This one's still at 50, so, you know, a bit of work needed to be done. But I realized that the Russian player was having some trouble with the British, so I decided, you know what, I better get these men over here. What do we have here? We have a light foot, we have a regular, and the 3 regular foot. These guys are like the champions of this game, because if not, I'm pretty sure Russia would have collapsed like completely. But unfortunately, I was able to march these guys all the way over from one side of the battlefield, and fortunately, they weren't banged up all that much. Just maybe a couple losses in their regiments. Mostly still pretty healthy. At least the Russians still had their dragoons left, which is a big help to us. And so I decide, you know what, we better start preparing to attack Austria, because the game isn't over unless you kill everyone. And so I decided, yep, because I still had my dragoons left, and the French player was going to be able to support. So eventually I'm going to be moving over there. But for now, we do see that I'm rushing in the Black Watch right now, and those guys are really good troops. They're very good at taking down units, especially that are weak, and it'll boost the morale of my men, which will help them fight better. Now granted, we're fighting against 4 armies, so that gets a bit tricky, but as you can see, while I was moving my men up, the British player must have noticed, because he starts to pull back and get behind his stakes. Granted, those stakes aren't going to help against infantry, because, well, we're not riding on horses, and I love the nice little column section line of marching here. I like that style. I think it looks really nice. And the Russian player kind of covering my flank as I go to give that support. As you can see, the Russian Jaeger regiment is actually fighting against these rifles, where they were, but apparently they've decided to... Oh, nope, they're going to keep engaging. That's what I thought. Yeah, I thought they fought those guys out. As you can see, it looks like it's a pretty difficult struggle, but here's the thing. I'm looking at... I'm always constantly looking at these, and I notice my men in general are like much worse off. But you know what? That's not going to help our army. So I prepare to move my men over pretty soon here, I do believe.
The men are fatigued, sir, and must rest a while.
So in this house, my men are slowly losing their morale, which is a bit of a problem. But I'm really hoping that 33 unit 1 will just collapse, and we still have a decent-sized army. You know, even though we do still have to fight a fresh Austrian player and a fairly fresh British player, I had to believe that my men would be able to hold out with whatever support these guys could give, which is a lot. You know, don't get me wrong. Don't let me discredit them. They're invaluable to this operation. Because I decided, you know what? He's all set up over here. Let's hit him from the other side. So I start marching these guys over. We're not running, though, because there's no reason to run, because the enemy's taking their time. So I should take my time, too. And as you can see, these guys, even getting a chevron there, getting that upgrade, they're just going to start shooting down that general staff. And the plan is to actually just take it out, so that way the enemy will be cut down. Now, eventually, because my men are just better, and having Highland Foot, or sorry, the Black Watch, having Black Watch, regular foot, and you know, that mix, that really helped out. And eventually those men just broke. They just lost their morale. Then I had more men in there than them, you know, because like 26 and 53, that's not even enough to match like one of my Highland Foot. But unfortunately we do lose a unit there, which does kind of suck. But then we start moving. I start moving anyway to take position. I see that the French player had moved up really far, but I didn't want the Austrian player to run down and just slaughter everyone while we were setting up, so I had to get a secondary kind of defense here, just in case. As you can see, these Highland Foot getting that second chevron. These guys were awesome in this battle because they were in melee and they had gotten a lot of kills. You know, they were doing their job. The Russian player kept these men in this building for a while, which did help because I think they were kind of firing at that, which is nice.
Our men are running, sir.
Okay, so eventually we do end up losing those double chevron guys, which kind of sucks. But fortunately, this Russian player who was just pounding on this helped out and was able to help us take out those Fusiliers. So then once I see that we've pretty much taken over that building, I'm going to want to be able to get these guys out of here and kind of help out. Because that's what you should want to do. Because while my main force and pretty much fresh army marched over to combat the fresh Austrian army, which is a good thing that I didn't have to commit too many units to go fight the British because I had those allies there that were going to be able to support me. The British player is not really doing much. He's just kind of sitting around. We believe he went AFK, but we're not too sure because there are troops moving. Though this might be the British player who... Actually, no, I think we killed that British player. I think the middle British player is actually dead at this point. And you're only watching the one player. So right now it's a 2 versus 3, but unfortunately that guy's camping up on the hill, which is going to make things a nuisance, so I decide we should probably take out this guy first, so we can't get a backstab when we go for the strike on the Austrian player. And so I bring over my units, and I'm thinking we'll just line up here in this kind of a formation and get ready for them to charge through, because I want to take this choke point, if possible, get like a curve around them, because that'd be one of the better ways to go about it. As you can see, the enemy is routing through them. My French player is killing some routing units, which does help, you know. So I finally decide to move up because the Austrian player is just not doing anything, and I really want to be in position for when we make that attack. Eventually, these guys will in fact be moving up as well. But as you can see, these Black Watch are getting out of there, and once we get out, eventually these guys are going to march all the way over here to give some support. In the meantime, everyone's just kind of setting up their defenses. The Russians, these are very experienced Russian men. Let me just say that. They're very well skilled. We had this lifeguard foot sitting here, but obviously he wasn't going to charge, you know, this long line of British soldiers, because don't get me wrong, you know, the British are very magnificent, you know, and they can get, I love these like nice long formations of troops. I think it's absolutely wonderful. As you can see, we have some Black Watch marching across, and he's starting to move up his men, probably to try and turn around. So I decide, hey, let's march forward here. Now these are my skirmishers, so they're all gonna kneel down, so that way these guys can shoot over them, which is definitely what we want to see, getting that double rankage forming. And eventually I give an order for them to move forward even more, because now we have to go pretty much have a civil war against us. And if you're wondering what's happening over here on the mini-map, just so you know, there's some light infantry fighting the Austrians, but what you'll soon find is that this ends up being pretty futile, because he just pulls back, and the Austrian player does not want to combat this in an open battle. So anyway, the British player sees what I'm doing, especially after that kind of a volley that I just pounded into him. Which, granted, that's what we want to do. You know, we want to push forward. I was a bit conserved about this third unit because I wasn't sure that they would be able to fit, so I decided to just have only 3 units in there. And then I kind of was just like really sad because I noticed this entire British force was coming after my men. I mean, we were in a good position, but man, that would hurt. And then they just go at it, you know, they just send this huge volley, and it just gets ridiculous. And the French, I'm telling these guys, hey, can you guys like swing around and like distract them? And they're like, oh yeah, you know, sort of. I mean, they're a bit slow about it, but eventually they do help. Like this nice Russian player getting his cav. Hopefully he doesn't charge into those spikes. I did not see this part because I was too busy focused on my own issues. Okay, good. He did not charge the stakes. That would have been a terrible idea. So my light foot are slowly getting cut down, and that's to be expected. But fortunately, our morale is high because they're fighting right next to these very good foot units. Granted, they're all just regular foot, but that doesn't matter because even though we're fighting the foot guards and Black Watch and Highland Foot, you know, we just have a better position because these guys, you know, some of them have a good angle, but if you look at like these guys, well, actually no, I guess they all had a good angle. When I was playing, I thought that they were firing up on the hill and not really hitting me, but eventually I am forced to pull back, which is just kind of the reality of the situation. So I form kind of like a conclave to try and hope to bait them to come into this choke point because they won't be able to get as many guns firing at once, which does work out. These units all pretty much hold. There's a bit of fighting over here against the Austrians, but they'll just back up into their corner, which is to be expected. So as you can see, my allies here are sweeping around here to try and cut these guys off, so they commit 2 units, and a huge mass of bodies comes in. If we had artillery, this would be perfect, but because I get this nice conclave, and it's a bit harder for him to see my men. Granted, as I look back at this replay, turns out these guys did not have the best angle. I mean, you can kind of see their heads, but when you're zoomed out, you know, and you're looking like that, like you're like, oh, that works. So I moved my men up to try and get that protection. These guys were actually not helping me. They were fighting at these guys, which is fine. They were shooting at these British line infantry. They're actually foot guards, so pretty impressive. But yeah, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units here fighting. against my British soldiers. And is this the point in the battle where I bring over... Oh wait, no, I already did it. Yeah. So I have some Black Watch in the far back. Those guys who were fighting melee in the town, well, they show up to help join the battle. And as you can see, the Austrian player is making some advances. But the French player was like, nah, I got it. It's cool. Which was very helpful. Over here, we can see that the Russians are fighting the British. Which, it's kind of awkward, so you can charge through these stakes going this way and you're fine. But when he tries to retreat, they get killed off, which is unfortunate. And we can eventually see that the British are squaring up. Which, you know, makes sense because the Cav are doing pretty good damage towards those foot units. But as one foot guard unit breaks, the Highland Foot are sure to break soon enough against the Polish Legion. The Polish Legion are a very good unit, and they have nice hats, so that helps. So as you can see, this is going to be a very long line battle. Like, if you have ever seen any line battle before, this is pretty much what it's like. Granted, I was actually able to... Because what you do is you never order units to attack. I always just like set them up in a line, and then my units fire on their own. Because if you don't, then they might try and change position to try and get everyone able to shoot at once, which isn't good because I liked this concave, which really is kind of what's helping me to win the battle here. Also, it does help that the Russians were able to bring over some men, even though they were super depleted. You know, those guys are pretty much going to break instantly, but he still charged them in, which was absolutely wonderful. Will they get in before the volley? No, they will not, but that did buy time for these Russians to get in, and this unit does have to pull back. So see, he's slowly having to draw units out, and I'm keeping the same amount of pressure, so eventually he has to break, especially with this unit of foot guard getting crushed. It really helps out. And as you can see, the Russian player having to pull back, but the French player will advance to help this support. But I still, from my perspective, you know, it's like, oh, I got a lot of guys I gotta fight. Especially with these British forces out here, because the British player was doing a pretty good job of holding his own, but he was trying to advance, which I'll give him credit for, better than the Austrian player, if I do say so myself, because at least, you know, this guy wasn't camping, he was just defending, which is much different. And hey, I mean, the Russians still had some units, which I was happy about. I don't think he ever actually remembered to use, France ever used these young guard that were just kind of sitting here. They must have come back from rallying. Whenever I play, my men never come back from rally, so you know, I don't blame him if he just kind of ignored it. So yeah, check it out. These guys were just like kicking ass because they have this nice angle. And I felt really happy about that. And what was really nice is that these Black Watch guys, you know, they're fresh now, you know, because they're not fighting. And these guys were actually fresh and confident, because it turns out that they were not shooting. Granted, they did not get shot, which would explain why it took a bit longer. But you know what? Everything kind of worked out in the end, because these guys, you know, actually everyone was kind of fresh.
One of our units has used all its ammunition, sir.
So I get this information, and I'm like, well, I guess there's kind of only one thing to do. So I order my men to charge, because hey, we don't have ammo. So then I grab, so as these guys run in here, getting a nice charge, my allies were just kind of setting up. I was telling them, hey, get these armies in here. And they were, you know, they were helping. So we have a nice charge.
One of our units has used all its ammunition.
And even if they broke, they're so stuck in the battle that it's hard. So yeah, my men don't have the kilts and the goofy hats on. And so I just bring up the Black Watch, because I'm like, hey, why not? And as you can see, this unit also ran out of ammo, so they will also be charging up the hill. Let's check out this very nice shot of the men running up. I think this is real bravery. I think this is like would be so intimidating if you were to just have to charge up a hill like that. And these men just aren't shooting. Who knows? Who knows why they're not doing that? And so then I reform up. I'm like, all right, let's line up. And man, I did not know that these guys were not shooting. That would explain why they were so fresh. And that means I was holding off with essentially 2 units, but we get a good cav charge from the Russian player, who's now helping my foot guards. But unfortunately, we do break, which is bound to happen. And the British player not really sending over any more help. I think he's realized this is still kind of a lost cause, because he's been forced to turn his Highland foot instead of pulling backwards and shooting across, which has given my men time to shoot. So now these fresh line infantry are all gonna just kind of fire. And they're firing at will, they're not doing volleys. So I see that there's this charge coming in, and I pretty much look at that and I'm like, well, my men will probably be able to hold it off. Yeah, because we just take it out, and then we just can immediately start firing. I had no reason to react to that, because they were so low on morale when they charged. Whereas my men were still kind of in the green, so that is kind of what makes the difference here. Now you will notice we are kind of starting to attack the Austrians, the French players moving up. I just came to support, but we're not really going after them too much. There's kind of 2 battles at once going on I was managing. But what's nice about this game is you can kind of let units just sit around, and they'll just kind of kill for you. Like what I was doing here. I wasn't really moving these units that much, because we were in a good position. And there's no reason not to. And look at all these dead British soldiers, man. That's just really unfortunate. So then we start getting a 2-on-1 situation here, because even though my men were technically doing worse off than his foot guard, you know, these Black Watch, they just are absolutely beast at destroying them. As you can see, I wanted them to fire, but they were firing at a hill, which does kind of suck. Fortunately, the Russian player does get off a nice cav charge because he doesn't see it, which breaks the morale and allows my black foot to just lay down waste into the this British player. So then all he has left is kind of these things. And you'll notice they don't have a general. I'm actually the only player who ends up bringing his general to the front of the battle in this scenario, because we're starting to make, this is the part where we start to make advances over here. Because I'm having my men shoot through them, because his men are in skirmish mode, so I'm just going to shoot through, which is the plan here. You'll notice the Austrian player, he's got, you know, a fair amount. If I was him, I would just look at that and I'd think, well, we would want to charge men around here and try and get a flank. I think that would honestly be his best move. He doesn't do that, but I think that would have been a very good move for him to do. So we pretty much were able to push through this flank, obviously with support of the Russians. They got the first volley, but that didn't really matter to me too much, because these were my bigger unit, which was fine. And these guys got 2 chevrons. You know, they can sustain casualties, but they don't mind. So we see these British forces kind of lining up like, "What's up, guys?" You know, like, "How are you doing?" And then he runs away before I really get a chance to set up and shoot, which kind of sucks. But fortunately, we do actually get 1 volley off. Did we kill anyone? Not really, but got a volley off. We have, oh, these young guard finally make a move. They're running across to try and take out this square, because the enemy was just squaring up, which is fine, you know. If they're not going to move, that's okay with me. So then, that's when it's time to start making the advance onto, I guess, the Austrian fortification. This is like almost sieging it. There were some random routing units of mine that were old. You know, they weren't like from the main force or anything, but they were routing nonetheless. And even my Russian player had his Jaeger unit. They were pretty small, but I was just kind of managing my men. Oh, isn't that glorious? That would be absolutely terrifying. But I'm actually pulling back to try and reposition, because I saw that he was coming down, and I thought, hey, why not get into a situation where I have the advantage? And also to keep these light foot good to go, because that guy's only lost like 1 unit of light foot. And then we're able to just fire up at that hill. It's hard to see, but these guys do actually have visibility. So yeah, these guys are just running. It's not very, they were kind of glitched out on the hill, and for the longest time I thought that they were some of my men, but it turns out that they weren't. So then I'm telling these guys, hey, look, I'm going to try and swing these guys over, but I can't, really do much. Although I was willing to try, and I was planning to, because I wanted to keep that stalled. Because as long as the British player was stalled, we could have a full attack here, and that's where the final segment of this battle will be taking place, right here on this hill. And this was probably one of the most gruesome challenges I've had to deal with. So the Russian player is going to be moving up his Swiss foot. Or sorry, the French player is moving up his Swiss foot, and some Polish legions, well, my light foot marched up behind him. And we probably could have just like bum rushed this into a big melee ball, but I wasn't really willing to do that, considering I had such a big army left, and I was the only player who really had an army worthy of recognition, because, you know, the Russian player, he was down to like this cav unit. I think he had something. Yeah, he had these units over here, which were moving. You know, I mean, I'll give him credit, but they were walking like all the way over here to help, which is fine, I would say, but it seemed a bit weird. So anyway, the French player is going to be killing off this unit of musketeers that tried to melee their way in, which didn't work. So, I mean, like how would you feel if you just saw this horde of men marching on your position? You know, I would be pretty scared, man. And it seems like they're actually going to try and go into melee. Yeah, that doesn't look very fun to me. So then they clash into the melee fray, while France is supporting, you know, moving up his own men. And then I decide, okay, I think we should probably try and get into a better position
One of our units has
for
used
later.
all its ammunition, sir.
So I realized that these guys run out of ammo, which is okay, because I mean those were the foot guys who were fresh but used up. So then I decided to charge them. For some reason they weren't running though, which is bad. You know, they should have been running. And that really hurts them. And this was kind of a big mistake I made on my part. So they actually end up breaking, which sucks. So then I'm left with the Black Watch. And as their comrades run away, they're like, oh god, get out of here, guys. The Black Watch are hardcore elite troops. So over here, we do end up getting pushed back, but we can see there's another wave of French-Polish Legion moving in. It just felt like endless waves, and then when the Black Watch ran out of ammo, I decided, you know what, men? It's time for one last hurrah. And we charged the square. And this time I made sure they were running. You know, this is like their finest hour, you know? Kind of that moment when you know it's all over. But somehow they gained their morale back. Maybe it's because of the double chevron. But they were able to get a clean charge into the square. And we actually end up getting my morale back, which is nice. So men start rallying and retreating. I'm trying to move my men up. As his men retreat, I'm just kind of firing the best that I can. And then over here, you'll notice that my men are running, but that's okay. Because my main concern is just dealing with this Austrian player, which I'm still, at the time, thinking, how am I going to do this? So I realize I have this range advantage because my light foot are still around, but then it looks like on my screen I thought he was coming down. This is another small mistake. I kind of go backwards, but then when I see, oh wait, he's going back into his own area, I decide to just push forward. And we're just going to push up this one choke. He's lucky, because we probably could have walked up this. I didn't know for sure at the time, and I didn't want to risk, like, you know, sending a couple squads over if they were just going to get shelled to death. You know, the way I saw it, this was the way up. So I lined my men up here, and we're ready to just kind of make a move. And we start firing at the Austrians. And you know, the Austrians, they can see this, and they're not actually in range. So I try and take advantage of it. And yeah, sorry about that. So you'll notice actually no, the Voltigeurs from the French are moving up. And then the French player is actually going to get a pretty hard hit right here. Sorry about that. The units are not perfect. This is kind of an old game, but anyway, they're pushing forward. I stopped shooting with my men to just kind of let them do their thing. And they get a charge off, which will occupy this unit. And at this point, with my men, you know, I noticed that the Russian player's troops were kind of moving over. He still had a decently healthy unit of Jaegers, and I thought he could probably keep them occupied for a bit longer. Especially with the French player having lost his men, so I decided, alright, it's time to just go for it, because he's pushed back far enough, and with those routing units stuck, actually wanting to route towards the nearest edge, which is towards the Austrians, I decided this was the moment to charge forward with my men. Actually, no way, the French players routed backwards. They're just like, see you guys, good luck. And we're just like, nah man, we got this. Because we have the Highland Foot, and regular foot, and foot guards. So we had like 2 very strong units here. And they were just lining up. And as you can see, the Austrians were setting up their lines. And actually end up doing a charge with a really weak unit. Actually, a couple of units. I didn't realize this, but I try and countercharge, which routes 1 unit, and my Highland Foot are occupied. In fact, I think all my men get occupied here in the melee. But I decided to bring in some cavalry to help assist in the battle. But then, of course, these units are free to fire at will, which surprisingly they walk down. So you just get this sea of troops. But I wasn't too concerned because we still have all these units back here that would help out. So I figured if these guys went down, I'll bring more in. So then he gets in like this weird squarish formation. We rout everyone, and I immediately tell my men, hey, we gotta start shooting at these guys. And then we just start firing away. I have my horses, these dragoons, yeah. My British dragoons, they just like come in and they're just like, oh yeah, we'll chop them up. And that ends up being really good to our cause, because now we're just kind of pushing up here, and the Austrians are like, well, we'll just send in another wave of our men to keep firing. So then I decide, yeah, we got to push up. So we end up just pushing forward here with all these units, just trying to get these good lines. Yeah. And this cav was really good at tying up my enemy. That's why I'm really glad I still had this cavalry left. And the morale was good because they were being backed up by like elite troops, which really helped out. You know, if I didn't have this cav, I would be in a straight line battle, and that would be terrible.
Look out, sir! That one means to kill you!
And as you can see, he's trying to do some sort of a shoot off, because my cavalry was wavering. But that's alright, because the French player was moving up some of his Swiss foot to kind of join the battle. Yeah, 2 units of Swiss foot. And I thought, okay, great. We'll be able to hold them off. Especially since this unit was getting chopped up by my men. You know, and like, look at this. Like, all the bodies, you know. They're like, oh, we'll hold the hill. Well, no, you're slowly getting whittled away, because we're fighting units with combined firepower instead of a single unit at a time. Like, these units should have been running down to engage. If you're not going to engage with your units, that's kind of a waste. So from his perspective, I think he was thinking, yeah, because he can kind of still see the heads of them without hurting my own men, which is what I was hoping for. But I ended up pushing forward because I was like, hey, we got to do this. But then I think he orders a melee charge because they're just screaming and running. And my men are still lining up. These guys are actually not going to be able to make it through this because they're just regular foot. They're not elite, but they're good meat shields, which is kind of something you want to look for. So then the French players charging in a very glorious charge. Just kind of cutting through. And if you're wondering what's going on back here, just so you know, there's just, the Russians are actually taking out one of the squares of units. But these units are pretty depleted, so they're not really going to do anything much after that.
Are running, sir.
So I realized, okay, I have all these like columns and rows of my men, and I was hoping this guy would come in to fill the gap that had been created by the loss of my men, but I decided, okay, we'll just use these 2 units to form up. No reason to waste, you know, extra units when I could just line up and have more men firing at once from my 2 units. Which is perfectly fine with me. Because now we have these foot guards and Highland foot just continue to cut through the Austrians. And the French player really did a good job of tying up these Austrians So then a desperate charge, the general runs in, because as you can see, we're actually running out of enemy soldiers to fight. So my men just keep pounding away in this final desperate attack. It's pretty glorious, if I do say so myself. I mean, being this guy, you know, just looking at this line, you know, sure, the French are breaking, but it's okay. Because now we're fighting off this last unit of Austrians. And then look at this, another unit of Swiss foot is going to run into melee. And they'll just clash, and morale will break with the loss of the general. Like, well, I mean, well, not loss of general, but you know what I mean. The general not being right next to them, morale goes down. And then there's a last desperate charge of the general trying to escape, I think. But because I square up, and then he sees that there's a gap, so then I'm pretty sure he orders them to, like, just kind of run away. Fortunately, the French are here to, like, take out some of the general's units. In the square formation, it means that my men are able to fire sideways immediately, which is really good. But I didn't know what he was expecting to accomplish. I would have been willing to run some men out, but I decide, hey, these guys are pretty healthy. Let's just have them run to melee charge them, because this unit was completely wiped out, and I knew I had to run back anyway. Actually, wait, no, the Highland Foot. Yeah, the Highland Foot are the ones who charge. And then they're the ones who are going to go after and probably kill the general. Yeah, the general's routing. And then these British forces are just going to line up, because as you can see with this formation here, while I have less than before, we still have those two British units that we have to deal with.
We have killed their general, sir. Now they must break.
And now they're breaking, and so now we're just down to these two units. So I'm going to fast forward here, like really fast, because there's a lot of marching that I'm pretty sure you don't want to watch. Just, you know, all these units marching. So yeah, this British player, I think he might have gone AFK, possibly, because he didn't even try and come to the aid of his allies. Which, you know, that was fine for us, because, you know, we're just marching these men over. This is not how fast they actually march. Again, fast forward, there's no sound when you fast forward. There's just the music, which is fine. So all these men are just going to march over. Let's just play it, because I don't want it to get too laggy. But yeah, all these men are going to march over and set up, and I'm like, hey, can you guys, like, take them out a little quicker? And then the French player, like, had almost as if, like, before I asked, like, it was already moving men over to just take out those last two units. And that's one thing that I don't really like about this particular match, is that we had to go hunt down these units, because everything would have been fine if we didn't have to, you know? So these Polish Legion are going to be like the heroes of the game right here. They're going to finish off the British, or at least they're going to try to. You know, because don't get me wrong, you know, I mean, even though there's no general, and, you know, I have pretty much half of my army still alive that we're going to line up, and then I was going to push them all as one unit, but yeah, these guys are just, you know, they're pretty chill. They're non-combat, yeah, they're just not even doing anything. They're not fresh either, though. You know, they've seen some pretty deadly battles. So here we come back to the D-Day for my men. I mean, look at all these bodies, guys. I mean, that is just nuts. I mean, I had a lot of dead bodies over here, too. I mean, but then let's, like, look at the city for a second. You know, look at all these dead people. You know, it was bloody as heck. People were dying all over the place. And, like, the poor Russians, I feel a little bad for the Russians, because, you know, they did such a good job, but, you know, they were cut down eventually. So you'll see these Polish Legion are going to be coming up on the British pretty soon. He starts to run them. And then I don't know what kind of an order this is. Oh, I think he did actually try and order them to move, but he forgot they were in square, because, yeah, according to... Oh, no. The Russians gave the order to attack those. The Russian Jaegers are coming. So now they're in square formation, so that means sections of their men will fire, but they're not in line formation. So not all of them will succeed. Kerblam. Just cutting them off, because when you're in a line, you know, it's much easier to take them out. And they both break. Thanks to this one Polish legion. They pretty much saved us a lot of time of having to walk over. And that's really the best thing. So, here you can see the players. Max was the Russians. Skanderberg was the French. I, of course, was the British. Madclap was the British who you just saw get defeated just now. Mr. Pansett was the British player in the middle. And Roulenadet, he was the Austrian player who was camping up on the top. So as you can see here, my army my side deployed more units by about 400. And we also were able to kill much more. But our losses were pretty even. I lost the least just because my men weren't really as in combat. So, I hope you all enjoyed. I'm Elwirfy, and I'll see you guys next time.